Welcome to Talking with Students. I'm Caitlin Ulf, high school Spanish teacher, alongside my good friend and colleague, Tiffany Kocan, esteemed English teacher. In this podcast, we will reintroduce you to Josh Zeisloft and Tanish Rastogi. Hopefully, get to know them better as people along the way, rather than just students. We believe that behind every great student is an even greater individual. Good afternoon, boys. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
I am so excited to do this because as I was speaking to both of you a few weeks ago, as you were speaking and asking me questions were, being formed within me that I wanted to ask you. And I've always been interested in doing this, talking to students in a very, like we said last time, authentic, organic way, and really picking your brains and getting to know you better as human beings. Especially as high school teachers, I feel as though our rosters are packed. Sometimes we have 160 students a day, and it's easy to kind of lose your students in the mix because there are so many of you and class sizes are so big. And so today I think this will allow us the opportunity to get to know each other better as people, which you've already done with various teachers, but today we're going to turn the tables and get to know students more as individuals and humans. So how do you feel about that?
Honored that somebody would want to get to know me. It's
Mm-hmm.
always cool when another human, I guess, wants to get to know you better. It's a really cool feeling.
Yeah, I definitely share that same sentiment. I think it's nice to kind of get away from the school setting.
Mhm.
Even though we're still in school, it's like
Yeah.
it's not as formal, I guess, as a classroom. Like it's not subordinate to the teacher. Now it's kind of like almost like a level playing field, just having a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So if you're comfortable and ready to go, I'm ready to go.
All right.
All right. So my first question has to be, and Mrs. Kocan, please join at any moment. It's almost the end of your high school experience. 1 to 10 scale. How much did you enjoy high school? 10 being the best, 1 being the worst.
I know where I'm at, and I think I know where you're at too.
Mhm. What is it?
10.
Yeah.
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 Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Like the way we met each other was through Odyssey of the Mind. It was just this competition in 3rd grade. And then we were best friends in 4th grade, and we got to spend each and every day together, and we just were, partners in mischief. And then we kind of got separated for a little bit in
Middle
5th grade,
school-ish,
middle
yeah.
school. We didn't really talk. And then high school started up, and we were on a robotics team together. And I think it was that mix of we did robotics together, and then we went to high school, and we had our classes together. We became much better friends. Over that course of time in high school, I think I've grown to be a better person because of him. And I think that part of the experience sticks out to me the most rather than the schooling, the education I got. Even though it's such a big part, I think it's the people in my mind, especially my teachers. They're the ones that kept me going, and they're the ones I come to school for.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's become very apparent at the end of the year. Like, I could easily just, hey, I don't want to go to school today. We're not really doing anything at this point. But, like, the reason why do I keep coming every day, why do I enjoy coming to school every day is exactly what he said. Like, the people, the teachers, the students that I've become such good friends with over the years in high school. And it's really different from what it's like in middle school because you don't really know yourself in middle school, I'd say. Like, through high school, I've been able to kind of find what I enjoy, what I find is important to me, and find people who think the same way and, kind of grow with them into adulthood, I guess, and into the real world almost. And I think this place as an education system, as a schooling, has prepared me for that, for the next step, and then also just the setting for having good friends. Yeah.
Do you think that you made a concerted effort to seek people who were like-minded?
I don't think I made a conscious effort to do it. I think it just kind of happened. Like, we were both in the advanced math program, so we both came up here to the high school for the first period of the day. And then I stayed for bio. But then, so like through that, we were both in the advanced class, and a lot of my other friends are also mostly in those advanced classes. And by the end of school, and even moving through from freshman to senior year, we always end up taking the same classes because we're always shooting for the stars, aiming for the highest class. We have similar interests and stuff like that. We want to go into similar fields. So I guess just being in the same classes and almost like suffering through in a way, I guess, like doing it together kind of helped bond. And then that just kind of grew outside of school when we had time to hang out and stuff like that.
So it sounds like you two loved high school.
Yeah, I think I would use that word.
Yeah.
So then answer me this. Why are students so miserable? Or at least why do they appear so miserable on a daily basis? Tell me what you think is causing that. Because from a teacher's point of view, when we're in front of the classroom, when you look out over a sea of 25, 28 faces, and you see almost a blank look across everybody's face, eye rolling, heads down, things like that, you realize that it seems as though everyone's pretty darn miserable in your classroom. What do you think that is? What do you think is really the root of that? You know, I try not to take it personally because it could be. So what are some even outside factors that are causing that?
I mean, like, at least for me, like, I know I definitely, like, in class will sometimes just kind of daydream and, like, not pay attention. I think that's where that blank stare kind of comes in, where you're, like, pretending like you're paying attention. Not pretending, but you're kind of just, it's where you're looking at the time. It's not really that, I don't think I'm miserable in those moments, or at least me. It's just, like, I'm thinking about how else it could be done, or, like, what else we could be doing at this moment. Like, for example, like physics C, like sometimes it's really, really hard to sit through like a double period lecture and you have to like kind of tell yourself to focus on it. But like sometimes when it's a double period lab day and we're in the lab together, we're getting our work done, but we're still like have an opportunity to talk to other students and like, you know, just basically mess around a little bit while still getting the work done. Those classes fly by. And like I feel like it's almost like you're kind of forced to just sit still for too long almost. And I know that this sometimes is just how it is, but I mean, it's definitely not that, at least me personally, is not that I'm miserable in those classes, just like, you know, I want to be kind of up and around and like actually doing stuff, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think you and I are inherently motivated and curious. And there's been times when we haven't known what our purpose was in classrooms. Like, we don't know why we're learning something. And at that time, it's really hard to focus and retain the information that we're hearing.
Right.
And so I can't imagine what it's like for somebody who goes through a whole school day and who might not be interested in any of the classes that they're taking. I hope that's not the case, but if it is, that would be painful. And I think schools have to do a better job at trying to make sure that they're drawing the circle as wide as possible in terms of the classes that they have, so that every kid's interest or potential interest is reflected in what classes they're able to take.
That's interesting. So I have a lot of questions that kind of stem from what you're talking about right now. So I guess maybe one of my questions would be, what do you appreciate from a teacher? What do you appreciate in the classroom? What is a class maybe that you've taken that leaves you wanting more?
Oh, I think the first thing is respect for the students. Any teacher that I've ever had a connection with has treated me like a human being, like I was somebody who's able to take the content that they're teaching and really apply it. I think the second thing is a passion for the material. If that shows and the students can see it, I'm much more receptive to what they're telling me. Because if they're not passionate about it, then I kind of see that as, why should I be passionate about it? I start questioning what they're telling me.
Yeah, definitely going along with that passion thing. I think sometimes when you're, especially with like the more like calculation driven stuff, sometimes it's hard to see like why it's interesting, but it's cool when teachers are able to like take a step back and be like this is how these things work. Like this is stuff you experience every day in your life. And, you know, whether it's, you know, something physical or, you know, something you can't see, like it's happening all around us all the time. And you had no idea what was going on until that very moment. But if you're just sitting at the desk, just taking notes and trying to listen, it's hard to kind of see that bigger picture. But if you can take a step back and be like, wow, that's cool. Like I know how that works now. It's kind of like a really fulfilling thing to kind of almost unlock another thing you can like understand in a way.
So is it a mode of delivery that kind of is contingent upon the different intelligences of students, coupled with their love of content and expertise? So what I'm asking you is, how do you learn best? And does that teacher make sure that it's a wide array of different types of activities?
It doesn't matter so much what the activity is as long as the objective of what you're going to take away from the class at the end of the 41-minute period is clear. I think as long as that exists and there's an end goal in mind, then I think the teacher's probably going to be able to get that through to the students.
I mean, it's also hard because there's obviously with a classroom with a whole bunch of different students, they're not all gonna have like, all be a certain way of learning is the best. Like, kids study different ways. Kids can understand stuff in different ways. So it's kind of hard to cater to everyone at the same time. But one thing that's pretty universal is exactly what Tanis just said. Like making sure every student somehow comes away with, this is what we did in class today. This is what you need to know moving into class tomorrow. Like that's like just make sure you have building blocks that are very clear as to what you're working towards and how you're getting there, basically.
And that system's not perfect. Like
Yeah.
one kid might like learn something one day, but then another kid will hear it, but they'll be confused or they need a little bit of help and learn the next day. So I think there has to be something in place where if you want to keep teaching towards an end goal, you have to make sure that ideally it would work, but in the real world it's not going to. There's always going to be stragglers who don't catch up in time. So I don't know how you make sure everybody gets caught up, but
I think there's a fluidity in language. And so I don't know how many times this has happened to you, but it's happened to me quite a bit where I will teach something in October and it'll be February. And someone will undoubtedly look up and go, oh, wait a minute. Because it's such a process.
Mhm.
It's not a step-driven content area.
It's developmental.
Right.
Right.
There's so many levels of development. So I sometimes wonder about those things because when you present different modes, you want to try to reach all kids. But then are you?
how do you guys do that? Like how do you figure
well-
out whether you're reaching every student?
It's very difficult, I think, especially like I said from the beginning of the podcast. I told you with our class sizes, that's very difficult. I mean, think about our AP Spanish class. We have many more students than my other AP Spanish class during the day, and with those students, I'm able to do a lot more one-on-one, and I have a better grasp of what they're picking up and what they're confused with. And I feel guilty because with your class size, it's obviously much larger, and I'm not sure if I'm meeting all of your needs. So I think it's very difficult, to catch those kids who may be falling through the cracks and maybe just are too shy to ask for help, or
I would agree with you, but I also think that sometimes what we can't get over is I learned it this way. Okay, now I'm asking you to break every rule that you've learned about language so that you can add your own voice, style, inflection. And I don't know if you have that issue. I'm guessing you do because it's all kind of building blocks until you get to that point when they get to you.
Right.
And it's the same way with me.
Yeah.
You have to break that 5-paragraph essay very early in AP Line. And I'm assuming getting them to speak every day, all the time, in your language.
Right.
Especially when some of them aren't necessarily on board.
So that's another thing is when you see a student or you experience a student who seems to be struggling in class, as a teacher, you have to consider things. Is that student not capable of learning the material? Are they capable but bored? Are they having issues outside of school that's causing distractions? Various things come into play there when you have a student who's struggling. So what do you guys think? Like, how would a teacher best reach all students?
To be honest, I think that pretty much everyone's capable of learning anything. At least that's what I believe. Like some people, might just not take it as seriously, but I think that every human has the potential to learn literally everything they can. And, sometimes it's kind of hard because you've almost been trained to a certain degree of rigor. And so if you try to kind of push that boundary a little bit, they almost like shut down and say, like, I can't do this at all. Like this is just too much for me. And I think part of that also comes from other classes as well, because I think it's kind of hard for teachers to see that there's other things going on in a student's life than just their class. And it's like kind of seeing they can't see the bigger picture as a teacher because they're teaching the same subject or a couple subjects just every day. When kids are kind of jumping around, 8 different periods a day or so, and it's just kind of crazy. It definitely gets up there with the workload and stuff, and I think that's when it's kind of hard to keep up in things. Like I've definitely experienced that when one class is getting a lot of homework or a lot of stuff I'm kind of confused on. I have to spend more time kind of figuring out on my own. Then look at this class. This class is also the same way. And it just kind of builds on each other until I'm able to kind of like submit that workload. And then it kind of calms back down again. But I think it's just kind of hard to focus on everything. And sometimes you have to make sacrifices in places where you can. And, if you have to work ahead in one class a little bit more, maybe if you have a worse grade in a certain class, you have to sacrifice a higher grade just a little bit to be able to push that other grade up, I guess.
I mean, we kind of look at this in isolation, like what can I do for my kids in my class? But then you have to think about that student has 8 other classes that they have to take. So I would say it's almost impossible to do this perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never really going to happen ideally the way we want it to.
Do you also think that you're coming from a perspective of you two are problem solvers? Like innately and intuitively, you two are problem solvers. And not all of our kids are. I mean, there's a hierarchy of learning, right? And there's a hierarchy of understanding who we are, psychology. So I wonder, you folks are able to kind of maneuver what could be problematic for you and maybe prioritize the homework on that night.
Right.
And there are a bunch of things, and I often wonder, what could we be doing better for the kids who are not, people have told me, come down out of your ivory tower. Several times I've heard this because I teach AP and honors kids. And so I often wonder, as the AP Lang class gets bigger, I mean, that net is wide, 200 plus for next year.
Wow.
And do I think every single one of them should take the class? I do. I do think they should take AP Lang. But they're not all equipped as much as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing we have to put into play too. It's honestly like nonstop parenting and professionalism simultaneously. So, but I appreciate what you're saying, because I think some people cannot necessarily articulate it to the point that you have.
I think part of the system that is in place now is innate, or on the surface seems to help kids who can't learn as fast or aren't able to hold on to stuff as quickly. But I think it's the complete opposite. Like if you're starting in academic classes, you should be moved out of academic classes by the end of your high school career. I don't think you should just say, oh, well, I'm just an academic kid, I'm just going to stay an academic till I graduate. Like there should be a progression of learning. Like the point of academic classes are to get you ready for the next class. I think that if you take an academic class one year in a certain subject, the next year you should be attempting that honors class, or at least talking to your teacher or seeing if you're ready for it or something, because it just seems to hurt kids more than it seems to help them. Like they just kind of get stuck in this like rut of, well, this is the workload I'm used to. These are the kind of questions I'm used to. I'm never going to have a higher level of thinking or learning than I am right now, and then that just kind of keeps
So it's
going
a status
down.
quo kind of thing.
Yeah.
You think the mindset is, well, why would I change it? I've always done this.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
Well, and that's also it could potentially be very harmful. We've made an effort in this building to move you up the ladder, but I often question, because my son's going into high school, how do you find that balance too? So if I can just start with that, like how have you found academic balance in your schedules?
I wanted to say on that last
Sure,
point,
I'm sorry.
if you're somebody who's taking academic classes, then I honestly feel like the first time you step up or take an honors and AP class, you're not going to have that resilience. When you get to that first challenge, you're going to step away from it and retract and maybe retreat. You're not going to want to persevere through it. And so that's the one thing that's always scary to me, is if you do put a kid who's been in academic courses and then you do put them in an AP or an honors class, are they going to be able to do it? So I don't know how you manage, like you said, 200 kids, that wide net of skill levels. I don't know how you do it.
Well, you do it by connecting with them as much as you can.
Yeah.
And that's why when you're able to sit and talk to a student, or conference. There's, I think, such more of an impact
Mm-hmm.
both ways. And so I just, that's why I'm a firm believer that language classes, and I'm not knocking science or STEM or anything, but I think language classes should have a pretty rigid cap.
Oh, absolutely.
A pretty rigid cap, like
Right.
Cap
24
Right.
I
max.
see.
Can they always do that? No, they can't. But I think that 24 cap, I think that's manageable.
Mm-hmm.
I think once you get up to 29, it's very difficult.
Right. So
Is-
then,
Yeah, reading all those essays.
Yeah.
Oh, that takes so.
Yeah,
Well, it takes,
can't imagine.
right, I mean, it takes a long time. So how have you found academic balance?
Okay. I mean, for me personally, I mean, something that's just been kind of ingrained in me, like as being a Zeisloft, I guess, is like that my parents always taught me is like strive for greatness. Like you want to be the best version of yourself you can be, and that's something I've tried to carry with me through all of high school. And I accept the challenges, and it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard, and sometimes I just really don't want to do it, but you just gotta power through it. To be honest, like it's gonna pay off in the end, and I'm a strong believer in working hard allows you to have a better life in the future and achieve your dreams and everything. And it's so far, I mean, it's turned out pretty true for me, and I'm happy with what everything I've done. But also having all that work and striving for greatness the whole time, there's obviously you can't do that 24/7. It's just too taxing on your mind and your body, honestly. Loss of sleep and stuff some nights, it's bad. But I mean, I try to, the way I balance, at least academically, with just personal life, I'd say, is I try to make sure every day that I have something where I can just be with myself, not even with friends or anything, because I don't think that kind of lets you rejuvenate yourself as much as just being alone. So every day, no matter what, I will be at the gym for 2 hours. That is every day. That happens every day, and that's just doing homework. I have to finish my homework every night. I have to go to the gym every night. That's just the way it is, because it's just a place where I can, even if I have a lot of stuff to do, I can leave that all at home and just go to somewhere where it's just me focusing on what I'm doing in that moment, and I can just basically relax. Even though I'm still being productive and getting things done, I'm still able to relax. And I think whatever form that takes for anyone is perfect. I think that's how you balance it, and depending on how much work and how much free time you have, that can change in either direction. But I think it's extremely important to have something like that you can be by yourself with, I guess.
Yeah, I almost think academic balance is kind of the wrong way to put it. You have this school life, but then you have to make sure that you have something else that you're doing that's fulfilling to you. Like I run every day of the week, and then after I run, I come downstairs and I eat dinner with my family, and we watch a movie or we talk. It's one of the two things, and that's rejuvenating for me, because I can separate from everything I've done in school. I can just completely detach from that part. Another thing is my phone. There's a do not disturb mode. It goes on at 7 p.m. every night. Doesn't come off that mode until 7 a.m. the next morning. Josh knows about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I separate from people, and that's how I relax. I just have to be with myself, because yes, I'm an extrovert, I guess, when I'm talking with you, but if I don't have that energy to do it, I'm just going to be sitting here and I'll be mopey and I'll be moody and I won't want to talk to you at all. I need to have that alone time, and then I'll be fine and I can talk to you the next day.
I think an important distinction to make with this point, though, is whenever you're taking that time to yourself, it also needs to be something productive that you're doing to further something. Because if you're gonna my me time is sitting on my couch and playing video games or watching TV, then the issue arises when you go to do all your homework and stuff. You're oh my god, why did I spend all that time watching TV? That wasn't doing anything for me. Well, if you're oh no, I was spending time with my family, or I was at the gym, I was running or whatever, you can say that was something important, and that is gonna build whatever you're working on, relationships, anything like that.
Yeah.
And then when you get to your homework, you're well, I have a lot to do. You're still going to get it done and not complain about that hour or two you lost doing that thing, because it was still something productive. instead of saying, oh, I can cut time out of that to do more homework, which, you need that time, like we've been saying.
I almost think it's like we never let our brains rest.
Yeah.
Because like when you come back from summer and you go back to the first day of school and you know that feeling like you're getting back into the groove of it and you feel like your brain's expanding for some reason, that's we don't go home and slouch. We go home and we do things that exercise other parts of our brain.
Honestly, it's almost like when I was younger, like everyone did, like just, oh, I don't want to go back to school, like summer's great. Like the past couple of years in high school, I'm like, this is so boring. Like I have nothing to do all the time. Like this is accomplishing nothing. I'm so unproductive. I wake up at like noon every day. Like I don't know, but I love getting into the groove of school because like I feel like I'm getting so much done. I'm being so productive. I'm like moving towards a goal, and like then seeing the payoff like at the end of the year, like hey, you graduated, you had all these grades, like good job. Like it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I think that falling into the pattern sometimes is kind of nice. Like you just know what you're doing every day, every time, what time during the day,
I've gone into the mode, and I know you have too, where if we're not doing something productive, we're freaking out. Like, what is happening?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up.
But it's not
You know
negative.
where I'm going with
I want to
this,
say
right?
that.
I know exactly, because this is
Yeah. So
exactly where
I'm interested in this conversation, actually, more than I thought I would be, this particular conversation. Because I sometimes wonder if the constant need to be productive, not necessarily with you two, is counterintuitive for other people. So I listen to your story and I think you have a strong family life. You've got very much quite a bit of support. You come from good stock, and core family values are definitely important. Many kids, I don't think, have that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering how that looks. Kate, what do you think?
Yeah, and along those lines, I was just going to say that, obviously, clearly through this interview, this podcast, that you two are intrinsically motivated. I mean, you're exceptional students, right, and exceptional people, and you have that intrinsic motivation. Where did that start? Was that, like you said, like, were your parents instilling that in you? Was that something you just naturally became or have always been? And like Mrs. Kocan said, not all students have that intrinsic motivation, at least when it comes to school. So
I also think that you're extraordinarily, and I told you this when we talked earlier, you're extraordinarily fortunate that you have the same belief system. So you have each other too. I often wonder about students who don't have that. I often wonder, is it a domino effect? Do kids try to overcome those obstacles? I just always wonder how this works because the dynamics are so vast, and we try, I think, as hard as we can to know you. But there are always things we don't. And those pieces might be the pieces that are hindering kids moving forward. So it's interesting to you. And I asked you about the academic balance because, and I don't want to take away from anything, but there is widespread across this country an increase in mental health issues. So, those are the things that I'm just curious about them. But she's got the questions.
no, but if you would answer those things first, and then that will most likely lead into what I'm very interested in.
Well, I would say that, and I keep speaking for you, but I know your
Yeah, you know.
your answer's probably the same. I remember I told this story today. I have a very strong familial backbone,
Yeah.
and that's what I call it, the backbone. I've been saying that since like 10th grade or something. When I was 5 years old, my mom, against my will, took me to the public library. I wrote about this in one of my essays, and she read to me Dr. Seuss every single night. Every night. She kept taking me, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I was like, Mom, why are you doing this? When she would read to me and she would make me read, I would always be like, Mom, can we go home now? Can we go home now? At that time, I didn't realize what she was doing it for. But now I look back, and I'm so glad that she did it. I'm so glad that she did it, because otherwise I wouldn't be here doing this podcast, right? And if you don't have that familial backbone, it's really hard for other people to come in to fill the void, because family is, for me, and I think as human beings, it's the first thing that we look to for guidance. So if you don't have that, it's super hard to do anything, whether it's succeeding at school or even believing in yourself to do something that you're passionate about. You're always going to be doubting yourself, and that's not something that Josh and I have had to deal with.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to see a different perspective, because you literally just said it, like, strong family backbone, right? Like, literally the same exact story. Like, not specifically with the library, but like reading every night. Like, my parents have videos that I've watched of like them reading to, me, my brother, and I. And like, there's this one specific example of like my brother being read a story. He like can't read yet, but he's saying the words along because they've read the same story to him so many times. He can look at the page and realize what's going on the page, and just knows it from memory, which is crazy because he was really, really young at the time. And they did that with all of us. Like, every time, I've got 2 other siblings. Anytime someone was born, the reading would start very, very quickly after they were born.
That's
and
why
like,
you guys are so damn smart.
to be honest with you, like, I'm so thankful for that, because I think that is exactly what you're saying. Like, that instilled that, sense of curiosity and, wanting to learn all the time, and, wanting to be successful. I think that's where that came from, is from family. And I think that, like you guys are saying, kids who don't have something like that, it's very hard, because, I wouldn't say that, like, my grandparents on my dad's side and mom's side, like, they're also great people too, who did similar things, maybe not to that degree, but a similar kind of thing. And I think it kind of speaks to it that's how it grows. That's, the American dream in a way. Like, my grandmother was an Italian immigrant who moved here, and then now my mom is, having me and my brother, who's, going to Wharton, which is, it's a fantastic school, and like, it's just growing. And I think that's the way that that's how it works. And people had to make sacrifices. Like, my grandparents and my parents had to make sacrifices, and they had to do things they didn't want to or were hard to try to make life better for their kids. And like, that's sometimes what you have to do, honestly. Like, for kids like that who don't have it, if they can almost make it themselves, and it's hard. It really is hard, but it'll make them better off in the long run if they can find someone who is like that, and they can be around friends who can push them and help motivate them, and help them grow as a person, academically, personally, and it'll just kind of expand over time, and their kids will have that same kind of treatment. And then it doesn't always work like that, but
So ideally, school and teachers would be that backbone for kids who don't have what you two have. And I hope that other teachers listen to these podcasts as well, and that they learn a lot from this one that we're doing right now. What do you wish teachers knew about you, your lives? What could help teachers know their students better and maybe empathize a little more and be more supportive to their students who need that backbone here?
Well, I just want to say one more thing before we moved on. We were talking so much last time about you can't connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect them looking backwards. That's Steve Jobs. So I look at all the success I've had in school now, and I can draw a direct line back to the time when my mom took me to read the library. And I think Josh is right. Reading is so essential. It does make you curious. And that's the reason I got through high school as well as I did, because I was curious. Like, when I look back at economics and government and language, literature and physics and chemistry, the only reason I took these classes is because I was curious.
Well, and language is so pivotal in the first 7 years of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn tens of thousands of words in the first 7 years of your life. That language acquisition device people don't understand how important it is. And beyond just the curiosity for learning, it's that repetition of feeling safe and secure. So it has a lot to do with it.
But Going back to your question, which is what can teachers do to make sure that kids have a backbone?
What can we do to empathize?
What can we do to empathize, or what do you wish teachers knew about?
I mean, I think you guys know a lot more than other teachers know about what a teenager's going through. I get that from your classes and just the way you talk to us. But I think I said this before, families up here, like, sorry to say it, but I don't know if there's anything you can do to fill a void that big. Like, you could fill it a little bit, and you could hopefully make them feel safe and secure and respected, but I think that's something that can only be fixed by the family. I don't know, that's just what I think.
I think you're right. Like, it's hard to come out of a rut like that when you're missing such a pivotal part of, you know, the human experience is family, and that's, if you're missing that, then it's really kind of compounded into other aspects of your life where it wouldn't seem like it would be important, but it is. And you know, I don't know if, like, it seems doom and gloom, like, oh well, if you're, you know, if your parents were bad, then like you're screwed for the rest of your life. That's not necessarily true. Like, you know, you can, it takes time and it takes effort, but you can get out of it. And I don't, like, kind of like what Tanya said, I just don't think that, you know, teachers can really fill that void entirely, because you don't spend your whole life with your teachers, you know. It's really just the 41 minutes for the class period, and then that's it. Like, there's not a lot of kids who will, like, you know, stay after school just to talk to teachers or anything like that, just because they enjoy talking to them or anything.
So what do you need from a teacher? What do you appreciate from a teacher? You said passion, we talked about that. But when you go into a classroom for the first time, taking class for the first time, what do you expect from them? What job do you think a teacher should fulfill? What's our main role? What do you need from a teacher, appreciate from a teacher?
When I go to a classroom, I'm ignorant, and I'm going in wanting to be taught, right? And so I think some of the teachers I've had over the years, I feel like they didn't understand that. Like, they thought I knew what they were talking about, when in reality, I had no idea. Like, you have to meet me at the level that I'm at. You can't teach above where I'm at. And I think that's a mistake a lot of teachers make. And I think they just have to be more conscious about their audience, knowing who their audience is.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going along with that, like, the main role of a teacher above all else is just to get the content across. Like, that's the job. That's why we're here, is to learn, and that should come above everything else. But kind of intertwined with that is how it's being taught, and exactly what you said, like, meet the students where they are. And the only way you can know where they are isn't by their test scores and by how they're doing, if they're doing their homework or not. You have to know the student personally.
Yeah.
Because they could be doing really good or really bad on their tests and stuff, but they could be in a completely different spot than where you would think they are. You know, maybe they're confused about something and they're just barely scraping by, but to you it seems like they're doing fine. I think that knowing students personally is a very, 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 very important thing. And I think that it's a two-sided thing. Like, you can't, if you're pushing on a student to try to have a personal relationship with them and it's just not happening, that there's nothing you can do about that. Like, the students also want to actively, you know, have a relationship with you. And honestly, I want to have one with all of my teachers, because I do think that it makes learning so much easier. And if I have questions, it makes it easier to talk to those, you know, specific teachers and stuff. But I think that's just as important as pushing the learning. It's kind of intertwined. It's one thing.
What's the worst thing a teacher could do? In your opinion, what's something unforgivable, or even something that as soon as this teacher does it, you've lost faith, hope, trust in that teacher? So is that a hard question to answer? Is that awkward?
I don't know.
I'm just going
What
to try to go back to
immediately
the
turns you
negative
off?
experiences.
Okay. And deters your learning rather than...
I have to think, because it's been a while since I've had a terrible experience.
That's what that's
Okay,
why I'm having
that's
a hard
good.
time.
Well, what if there are just things that are done that impede the process?
I think it's basically the opposite of what we said earlier. If you disrespect me, I'm going to shut off. Anything you tell me, I'm not going to care.
And what would that look like?
Disrespect?
Yeah.
Condescension.
Okay.
If you teach me below the level I'm at on purpose, right? Not, inadvertently, but on purpose. if you're not passionate about your material, but I haven't really seen that to be a problem. But there might be some teachers who get into the profession for the wrong reasons.
Right.
It's tough.
We have a lot of things we have to accomplish in 41 minutes, right? To feed you knowledge, have you, like I said, chew it up, digest it, process it, show comprehension, at the same time get to know you as people, meet the needs of various types of learners within one classroom. It's a
What
huge
about the
challenge.
speed of delivery?
I always felt like that was pretty, it's all right, honestly, because I think that sometimes when it's too fast, then you get, caught up with everything, and if it's too slow, then you're able to catch up with all the stuff that you were kind of missing before, and I think that is kind of pretty natural in a way. Like most teachers have been doing this for a long time, and they kind of know what they're doing. At least for me, I've never really had a problem with the speed at which material is being taught,
Yeah.
honestly.
I feel like nowadays, if you go too slow, it's an incentive for me to take my phone out and not pay attention.
Mhm.
Like, if you go too fast and you do it, if the first time is fine, the first offense is okay, but if you keep repeating it, it's going to be an incentive for me to kind of give up.
Mm.
Especially if my personality tends towards that, or if I'm challenging myself for the first time, and then I realize, whoa, this isn't for me, and then I'm going to want to retreat.
What's your biggest regret from high school? If you have any.
Oh,
Do you
I
wish
mean,
you had done more of or less of, or what would you change?
I mean, for me, honestly, I wish it would have been more diverse with what I took. Like, I've always known I'm going into the STEM field. Well, I've always known I want to be a mechanical engineer, but I still took a lot of STEM-related classes about stuff that I already knew how to do just from my personal life and being interested in that stuff, when school is also a great opportunity to learn about stuff that you don't know anything about. Like, for example, this semester I'm taking ceramics, which initially I thought was like, oh, it's just, it's an art class. I haven't taken any art classes. I'm a senior. I want to be able to relax. But I really enjoy it. Like, there's my
Sure.
piece over there sitting on that table.
Yeah, that takes skill.
And it's
Yeah.
actually, I really enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. And, like, that specific one, it, like, blew up because, like, the base was too thick.
Mhm.
And, like, I had no idea that could happen. So, like,
yeah.
learn and
Do you remember that
Move on.
conversation I had with you guys last year? Take
About
the
what?
art class?
Yeah.
When you were scheduling?
Yep.
No joke. When I walked in here and I saw it, I thought someone left this. And you want to know why? Because I know how academically charged you are. So I thought, well, I was like, I wonder who left this, because it looks like what is it called, raccoon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glad and excited for you that you took it.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
that's fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
enjoyed
now
it a
you're
lot.
STEAM.
Yeah.
Got to throw that art
Yeah.
there,
Really.
right?
Yeah. 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 I don't know. It's cool because it's like something I never really knew how to do, and like, we had like the hand building stuff, and we did that in like elementary school, middle school, like just make little like animals or whatever out of clay. And we did that at the beginning of the ceramic stuff, and I was like, I mean, we've always just kind of been doing this, but that was on like the pottery wheel, which is like a whole different thing, and it's like really cool. Like and like I went to Pompeii a couple summers ago, or over spring break, and like it's cool to see like they made like all these gigantic pots, like that was like everything to them. Like that, like ancient stuff was always revolving around. That's how they transported everything, and it's crazy like to learn about that kind of stuff, and like this is a similar way to how they made it back then, and like the history of all of it. It's really cool, and like I wish I had done more stuff like that earlier in high school and had those opportunities to learn about stuff that I just didn't know anything about, because that's so much more enriching and so much more fulfilling than just relearning something you already know. And then, like Tanner said, it's just incentive to kind of shut down and pull out your phone and whatever.
Aren't you amazed at the art teachers?
Yeah.
They
They're
are
awesome.
rock stars.
They're awesome.
The stuff that they make and do and study, ridiculous. Ridiculous.
They're a
Yeah.
huge resource in this high school.
What about you, brother?
Do you have any regrets?
I mean, class-wise, I have some, but those are minor. Yeah. I think the biggest thing, because we both take honors in AP, we've been doing that for so long, we've kind of gotten entrenched in this group of people that we go from class to class and meet. And I think I'm somebody who, I really love hearing new ideas, new perspectives from new people. That's where they come from. So I wish I could have met more of my classmates and maybe more underclassmen too, just to hear what they have to say.
I mean, honestly, for anyone just now starting high school, like any advice I would give, kind of,
Yeah.
is exactly what I just said. And going along with what you said, the way that you meet people who are outside your academic area is you do clubs and stuff like that.
Right.
Because that's how you meet people with similar interests to you, but maybe aren't your grade and maybe aren't at your academic level, but maybe they're interested in that specific thing that you're doing, like forensics, speech and debate stuff, or robotics, anything like that. Like, a couple of our friends from robotics I probably wouldn't have met through academically at school, but because we had that same passion together for robotics, then we were able to become really good friends, and like,
Yeah.
it's just great. Yeah.
One of our best friends doesn't take AP classes.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been so crappy for us not to have met him.
Yeah.
He's here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, my life
Yeah.
would be so much worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love hearing that. So can we talk about mental health and anxiety? What do teenagers really, truly face every day that causes this influx, this increase in student, mental health issues? What's going on? Because we read things, we see things on the news, you see things on social media. What do you believe is truly the cause of this influx? What's causing you so much anxiety? Maybe not you specifically, but this.
Do you know? Do you have anything?
I don't know if this is an answer, maybe it's. But I was playing this one game, and it's set in a post-apocalyptic. I wasn't playing it. I was watching a video about it. But it's set in a post-apocalyptic world, and the main character, she goes to this house and she reads a diary of some girl 20 years ago. So it would have been our time, and she goes, "Is this what people used to worry about? The guys they wanted to date, or the clothes they were gonna wear tomorrow?" Right? So that's our first sort of mentality. Like, we got to think always about tomorrow, and we're anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow. And then I think if you add phones onto that, that's another level of anxiety. And I think the root of all of it is judgment. I think right now, like you said, we're all egocentric, and we always think the spotlight's on us. So I think when you add a phone into the mix, and that judgment's just multiplied, the root of it, I guess, is being judged negatively and not being received for who you are. And I think for a lot of kids that makes them want to retrench and seem okay and not embrace the person that they really are, because they'd be received negatively or they might be cast aside.
I think that kind of the root of it is, like you were saying, judgment. Like, everyone wants to fit in. And I think that people are afraid of not fitting in and afraid of what other people are going to think of them. And it's kind of like I almost feel like it's a red herring in a way. Like, it's almost a non-real thing, because from my experience, no one cares, or if they do, then they're not going to be mean about it, and they're not going to like cast you aside because you're different.
Yeah.
Most people, if they're a good person, are going to accept you because you're different and are going to be different with you almost. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel like a lot of the like mental health stuff starts off fake and then becomes real. And I think that it is definitely expanded by people on social media, like constantly complaining about all this stuff, and then people kind of hop on the train, and I think that it's definitely a real thing. And I don't think it starts out for most people as a real thing, but once they kind of get into themselves and be like, oh my god, like I'm always so anxious, I have all these problems, and then it just kind of keeps layering up on top of each other, and then it becomes an actual problem, and then it's something that you can't get rid of and you have to deal with, and that might not be a popular opinion, it might not be true, but that's just the way I see it, because I've seen people fall into that, and it's very obvious when it happens because they completely change as a person.
I don't know if you guys realize the gravity of what Josh just said, but that hit it on the head.
Do you think that if we had two girls sitting next to us, the answers would be different?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, if you could look at this objectively from a bird's eye view,
Yeah.
do you think it's harder to be a female in this building
Mhm.
or a male?
Female.
I just wonder.
Like, as guys, it's just, I have a sister and a girlfriend, and I hear a lot of girl drama all the time. And from, like, it's just kind of hard to be, like, in that moment, like, that's just so dumb. Like, why are you even worrying about it? Like, that's just so stupid. Like, and for them, it's, like, the most important thing in the world.
And they
And, like,
cycle and
And it's,
perseverate.
exactly, like, you know, girls, like, I mean, I'm not trying to stereotype or anything, but, like, you know, talk behind each other's back. They're very quiet about how they are mean to each other almost. And guys are either upfront about it or
Yeah.
just don't care at all.
So true, we're passive aggressive and men are.
Yeah, and
Except for
I
me.
think it's honestly a big issue,
Mm.
and I think that it is expanded by social media because then you get girls posting on social media on their Finsta accounts and like indirectly making fun of other people or ranting about other people, and it causes a
I like
serious
that.
effect. And then imagine having that kind of pressure of like, oh my god, all my friends hate me right now because of whatever crap,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
won't talk to you or
Yeah.
something, and you don't even know why.
Right.
And then trying to do well in school and
Right,
trying to
right.
you know build yourself as a person, it's hard to do. And I honestly think
Yeah.
it's definitely harder to be a girl.
And I would venture to guess that most people don't do the do not disturb at 7 p.m. So these girls
Yeah.
have their phones on all night,
Mhm.
or you know, boys as well. And then you're experiencing that judgment, that comparison
Yep.
that we find ourselves in constantly with social media, and that is just it's 24/7.
And that adds to the
Yeah, to the
anxiety and
anxiety.
stuff, and then
Right.
it builds and builds and builds.
Right.
Or imagine if
Oh.
you had a serious problem, right?
Right.
And that got out on social media.
Even if it's not a serious problem, maybe if it seems like it's a serious problem to you, but other people don't think it's a big deal.
Correct. And I
Right.
think that's the other issue. You know, we talked about it in the podcast that we did together, and I said so often you can only focus on who you are because at this point in time in your life, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so your problem, you know, I always laugh when mothers or fathers say, oh, she was just your first girlfriend. And you're reeling from the fact that something negative ended the relationship. I mean, at that point in time, that's tragic for you. So
Yeah, you have nothing to look back on. Like your parents obviously have wisdom
correct.
and have been through that
Right.
stuff,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's hard to move back to that time in your life and be like, I felt that same exact way when that first happened to me too.
Mhm.
Because like you're saying, you can connect the dots backwards but not forwards. Like
Exactly. That's our favorite quote.
it's honestly just it's so true though, and it's like very important for you know moving forward in life. And yeah, I think that in the moment you need to be sympathetic of how people are feeling, but ultimately the goal is to move out of that and to move forward. You know, continue to kind of go back to it when it's over, it's done with, and you just need to move on. I think it's hard for some people to move on sometimes, and I think that adds to everything else we've been talking about.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely an issue of also parental support
Mhm.
and guidance.
Mhm.
You know, this is the way you're either the victim of your own life or you're the champion.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, mental health is a very real thing for sure.
Oh,
No
yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
And it's changed who I am. I don't suffer. I have not suffered, but you know, I have lost people who meant a great deal to me.
Yeah.
So.
I mean that's why it's dangerous with you know what we've been talking about is because if people are saying that you know oh like I kind of was saying like it adds up, it starts off as not really anything and then it becomes that. If you're seeing everyone the same way and someone who's at the beginning of a stage and someone who's had it a long time and is seriously suffering from it, if you see them the same on the surface, maybe the one that actually needs the treatment isn't getting the treatment they need, and the person who just needs to be motivated and you know show that they're loved to get out of it, they're kind of treated the same way, and that's dangerous because you know everyone needs something different, and it is definitely real, like you're saying. Like it's not something to joke about, and I don't know. It's hard to be where someone else is. It's hard to be in that same position.
What is a grade to you?
It's a grade.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's some people who it means a lot more than it should. It becomes part of their identity. That's not us. That's not us.
I can tell it's not.
I mean, I'm gonna do everything I can to get the A,
Yeah.
but I might not do everything I can to get the A plus because an A is an A, and I mean, I feel that like what you're taking from the class is sometimes more important than what you're getting on a test. And I think sometimes it's hard to do that because some people don't perform well under pressure, and some people don't. You know, we were talking about this with Mrs. Wenzel actually. Like, what is the value of a grade? Like, what does it even mean? And like, grades. Like, when was the last time like you guys took a test that like determined what you're gonna do in your future and like determined everything? It's timed, and you can only access your own brain for it.
But you need the grades, so it's this vicious cycle.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
You need the grades, you need the learning, you need the scores.
But I think grades are taken the wrong way. I think the reason why grades exist is to see that you're understanding the content.
Yeah.
It's not meant to see, like, are you ready for anything else? Like, can you be accepted to this college because of your grades? Like, maybe you're understanding the content, but you just can't perform on a test.
Right.
Like, sometimes it just seems
Right.
kind of backwards in a way, you know?
Our best friend, he took an AP class with us.
He was talking about it today. He was like, in his 8th grade letter or whatever, he was like, he was saying that, he's like, oh, how are your grades? I wish they could be better or whatever.
In
Like,
his
that's
8th
what he
grade,
said in his 8th grade letter. And he was like, he's like, my goal when I came to high school was to take a physics class. He's like, now I have taken two physics classes, both at the AP level, and I've loved it.
Oh.
And like, it's just like he that kid knows so much, and he's such a knowledgeable person, and he's so talented with especially physics stuff. But like, sometimes you just can't get the grade.
On a test.
Like, I would hire that guy over like someone who had gone through years and years of college and
Absolutely.
had no practical experience.
Right.
He knows what he's doing
Right.
because he's got that like the practical experience of it, and that's the important thing. So that's like, why is that not weighed heavier than the grade?
Right.
Yeah, I
Grades
always-
do not equal success. He'll do very well in life.
Oh,
He'll get
yeah.
a great job.
Yeah,
He
my
sounds like
money's
a
on
good
him,
guy, yeah.
absolutely.
How about socially?
Socially,
Like, what do you see as the social stratosphere in this building?
I don't know, it's kind of funny. I was thinking of a scene from the movie 21 Jump Street, if you've ever seen it. The guys are like agents and they're like pretending to be high school students and they're like remembering their time in high school and like what they need to do. Like, okay, we gotta like get in with the jocks and all that stuff. And they like can't figure out who it is. Like, who, like, I don't, like, there's all these new groups and they're like really confused as to what's going on. It's like, you gotta do the one strap on your backpack. Everyone's walking around with two. He's like, dude, I can't do it. I'm doing two. I'm not doing one. And like stuff like, but it's like, it's completely true. Like, from the time, like, you know, people like 10 years ago were in school, like everything's completely changed. Like there's completely different like cliques and everything. And
I've noticed that when I was in high school here, it was definitely a football player and a cheerleader for homecoming court, prom court. And then since I've been teaching here, I'm starting to see that it's the more maybe well-rounded students or the people who get along with their peers the best. Like, I've seen that climate change here for sure, which is a positive, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Why don't we have school spirit? And P.S. we never have, because I went here, and anybody there has never been. I don't know if you would call it like school spirit or just a sense of unity. It has never existed. It's so. What do you think that is?
I mean,
what's that based on?
Just at least for me, like for example, like we're planning like my grad party and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are like, oh, do you want Peter's colors or whatever? I'm like, no, I don't want Peter's colors. I'm going to college because I'm proud that I was able to get in there. I was proud that I was able to do that. But congratulations, you live in the area. You go to this school. Like,
So
there's no
why-
reason to be proud of that. You know
why
what I mean?
is there no pride in I went to Peters Township High School, but I'm proud that I'm going to blank.
Right.
Where's
What
the
happened?
disconnect?
Where's the disconnect?
we never.
I didn't work to get here.
Yeah,
I didn't
never-
work to go to this school.
we never invested in the brand.
What is the brand?
Peters Township, like we never invested. We never played sports.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think, for example, Can Mac has school spirit and we don't? What do they have that we don't? Because I
I don't
think
know
they
if
do,
I
don't they? Pretty. And
I
I
don't
know,
know.
like, Bethel Park has amazing school spirit. Like, I wonder what we
I think
are
that
missing.
It's a lot to do with sports, and I think that honestly, in some cases, it's a good thing that we don't have school spirit because it means that students are focusing on things outside of just the sports stuff because that can be like such a big like thing there. Like you're saying, like Bethel Park and Kenemac and stuff. Like they love all their sports stuff, and like that's fantastic. But there's also other things.
Mhm.
And if kids are focusing on those things as well, then maybe it means we have less school spirit, but it also means we have more well-rounded students. And I think that's more important.
Do you think there's solidarity in this high school? Do you think that we are
I
a
think,
family, a team?
yeah,
Oh yeah.
Remember?
No, I definitely still. Maybe it's not so outward at like games and stuff like that, but I feel like I connected with a good amount of my peers throughout my time going through with this class of 2019. I feel like I know them well, and I feel like I could.
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't seen it, but on one-on-one, when you just talk to somebody, yeah, I kind of see it. But I don't know if there's any. Do you need that? Do you need like a big group sort of vibe? You know, if you see it in an individual, is that all you need?
Yeah, why do we need to? Just the fact that we're going to the same school doesn't mean we have to be
Yeah,
proud or passionate about that. Like, there's other things that we're proud and passionate about.
I think a better use of our efforts will just be make this environment as respectful and kind and empathetic as we possibly can.
How do you do that? I know we instituted 4 Club this year, but I don't know if that necessarily led to more kindness or empathy. So I think that there were some small efforts, and I think that they were well received. I think some good things came out of it, but how would you?
The first thing I would say is it's gonna take time, because look, they just started it in the elementary school, right? And I know the kids down there are really happy about it. They really got into it, right? So that you gotta wait a little bit. I know it takes time, but I think you're gonna see it. It's hard to tell a high school kid who's egocentric and kind of set in my ways. It's hard to tell them, you gotta change a little bit. Like break a little bit,
No
Yeah.
teenager wants to follow rules, even if it's the right thing to do.
And
If you straight up tell them this is what you have to do, they're gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. That's
yeah,
dumb.
there's a bit of resentment of authority.
Yeah.
I
Like, I remember during that Friends of Rachel assembly, like, there were some kids being extremely rude, and like the presenter like called them out on it, and like, it's like, why even, like, it's just the fact that he's someone here talking to you and you're not getting to do something else that you want to do that makes you kind of hate what they're saying, which is a really stupid way to have a view on things, but that's just the way teenagers are.
I almost worry about those kids.
Oh
Because
yeah.
if you're doing that as a senior and you're almost an adult,
One of the things that I can say, just listening to you both, is that you have found a way to simplify. And I don't mean it in a negative way, I mean it in the best way possible. You've been able to simplify what's important to you. You've been able to simplify what the end game is. Yeah, I said end game.
I feel like that comes in literally every single podcast.
You have been able to simplify, whereas I think you are unicorns. Because if I were to look in the building, I think that kids are not able to simplify and compartmentalize because they don't have longevity of forethought or hindsight.
that's part of being a teenager.
I get it.
Yeah.
How, beyond family, if you were to have that conversation with a ninth grade boy, how would you explain your trajectory?
Dude, there's no way.
There is a way.
Okay, all right. From my experience, there's a kid, his locker's right next to mine, and I talk to him, and it's hard, because I'm on a completely different level.
Is he in ninth grade?
Yeah,
Okay.
and he's immature, and I'm just like, I don't know how to have a rational, adult-like conversation with you.
But you might not, but do you need to get on his level? I mean, you've
I don't
got,
know, I'm kinda
10 days
struggling.
left.
Yeah. It wasn't a mission or something. I was just like, I just want to talk to him, and I couldn't. Yeah, because
I don't know. Like, I've had one of my neighbors is in ninth grade, and I've known him for a long time, and like, that kid is like one of the best people I know. Like, he's such an awesome kid, and it's easy to talk to him that way, like at my level, because he's just a really mature kid, and like he has a lot of goals in life, and he really knows like what he's doing and stuff, and it's easy to talk to a kid like that. But to, like, for example, like, my sister is in 8th grade, so she's going to be moving into 9th grade, and I'm like trying to give her all this stuff like right before I'm leaving, and I'm like telling her all this stuff. She's like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, come back to me in 4 years.
Yeah.
Come back, you'll see. Come back to me in 4 years. Like, she's stressing.
You'll see.
Like, it's like she's stressing out about like she's in the advanced math, taking geometry and bio too, and she's like,
Cyclops.
she's so like, she's like, I need to get an A on this test, like studies for hours and hours. I'm like, chill out, like it's
Yeah.
gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Like if you get a B on a test, it's not a big deal. Like
Yeah.
I was that
Yeah.
exact same way too when I was that age, and I wish someone had told me that,
Right.
and I wish I would have taken that from someone.
But maybe at that age you couldn't.
That's that, yeah,
I
exactly.
think
It's
you
hard to
truly
see
have
that.
to move through certain things
Yeah.
to truly understand them and be able to.
Yeah,
But the simplification process is something anyone can learn from.
Yeah.
Like I've made very, very, very specific movements in the last several years to simplify my life. And it gives you less to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
It also puts things into great perspective. And yes, it's hard to have those conversations, but one piece of simplification advice, what would you say?
I would say look at your end goal and work backwards.
That's hard.
Is it?
Because
You
you
can't connect the dots looking forward.
But sometimes though, like if I'm saying I want to be the best I can be, okay, does that mean taking academic classes throughout high school? No, it doesn't. It means striving for greatness
I
and
was
challenging yourself.
I was honestly thinking outside of school. Because, I mean, you're either going to figure it out or you don't. It's only going to last 4 years.
But I mean, this
I
is a
was
big
trying
part of
to-
our life.
Yeah, it is. But I was thinking about how you grow. I think the most important thing that came out of high school is how I grew outside of high school. And that might sound ironic, but it's true.
But was it not also
Do you
through
mean
high
as
school?
a person?
Yeah, I do. I think that's the biggest thing you can take away from this place. That's the biggest thing I took away from this place.
I mean, I would say that because of high school, I grew as a person as well.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know,
That's
like,
true, too. I grew outside of high school because of high school.
Yeah,
It sounds weird, but
like
it's true.
that's where
very
your experiences
kindergarten.
come from. Is from high school. Like this is the exposure to the outside world we get is through school. Like
Which is weird.
if you're
'cause
sitting
we're
at home, you're
in
not
it,
gonna be talking to other people and
Yeah,
learning
yeah.
stuff like that. You're just gonna be isolated. But it's
Mm-hmm.
when you're
That's probably
hearing
what I
different
would say.
opinions.
So
Yeah.
this is
So
the
what
I
you
would
said,
probably
this is
say-
the dress rehearsal for the main event.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, you don't really have time to think about it at school, but I think that once it happens naturally over time, and once you look back on it, then you realize kind of what's happened. Like in the moment, you don't notice anything's changing or anything's happening, but
I
Yeah.
think my advice would be try to learn from others as much as you can and try to be yourself in front of others. I think if you do that, I think you'll end up okay.
People are still, but remember what we talked about, they're still searching for what that means.
Yeah,
Adults
I know.
still are. Remember our
Yeah.
conversation? I said to them in our podcast that I don't think adults are, because you had asked me, do you think? You said, how do you find yourself as a teenager, right?
Mhm.
Like in this world. And I said, I don't think adults have found themselves. And many adults haven't found themselves yet. I think it takes.
Self-actualization
It's
is
hard
is
to learn how to be yourself in
That's
this
like
day and
the-
age with all the
The
comparison
top of
on
the
these-
triangle.
just-
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is this wasn't a podcast. This would be a good coffee clash conversation.
How about next year, Christmas break, we
That's
all
what I was
reconvene
thinking
and-
What
about.
we're talking about.
Josh told me that.
and then we can really talk.
Josh
Oh,
said,
shit.
You're gonna have a
let's
lot
get
of
this on
editing.
record.
And-
Yeah.
And
You're gonna have a lot of editing.